Okay. Hello, everyone. We are here on this Wednesday, September 1st, with our Between Two Teachers episode and bringing you all events, across the nation and local on education. So, welcome to Between Two Teachers. And my name is Consuelo Lara.
And I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and we'll begin with our land acknowledgement. We pause to acknowledge that we have gathered on the ancestral territory of Huichin, part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo Karkan speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region, give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland, and offer our respect to their elders and all Ohlone people, past and present. So here we are again, continuing in pandemic times that we are in a very difficult week nationally for so many reasons. There's been the crisis in Afghanistan, there's been Hurricane Ida, there has been the continued crisis of the pandemic. And all of these things have connected in lots of different ways around education nationally. And one of the most interesting things I saw this week was there's a newsletter called Cafeteria Duty. And they posted that, and it's apparently very true, they measured how education is being covered nationally. And basically it's all negative.
Oh,
they went through all of these different newspapers, the USA Today, the New York Times, even Education Week, Chalkbeat, Hechinger, all of those are the education specific newsletters. And when they looked at just what types of Washington Post, NPR, and that's it, New York Times, USA Today, Education Week, Chalkbeat, Hechinger, the 74, which is a very pro-charter, pro-privatization newsletter, the Washington Post, and then NPR, and all of them were very, very negative and have been for a while. And if you think about it, that's true. We're seeing that, right? We're not seeing an elevation of what's going on in the classroom, of the work that's being done. What we're seeing is negative criticism.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the whole thing of the politicization of masking.
Yes.
And the whole thing on opening schools, all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's too bad because some people are working so hard, and
so many people, so everybody in education, they're exhausted. It's very hard. I mean, this is such a critical time in our history, and especially in education for our kids and everybody who's done all this work. There's a group called, and then they're being co-opted by other people. So there's a group called Ammon's Army. It's called the People's Rights Network. And what they have done is created a network of militia members, the January 6th people, militia members, together with anti-maskers, conspiracy believers, those who are prepping for a new future, and anti-vaxxers. And the anti-vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers have become very involved in school board meetings.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Right. But now we have the alt-right involved, besides having the folks from the privatizing world coming in who are also using this, because that I haven't even mentioned critical race theory, which is another whole issue. But that particular group, and obviously that's one of the conspiracies is critical race theory to them. So that's very a lot of action on that this week. There has been a lot of action around school boards nationally. QAnon, right? The conspiracy.
Yeah.
They are now putting together groups of people to run for school board.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's something, isn't it? I mean, it really benefits those people, especially the privatizers, the more disaster there are. And I mean, the schools are going through trauma, like all of us are,
Right.
the districts, the schools, the families. And
Right.
instead of saying, let's help, they're saying, oh, see, they're failures. Well, we're all failing because we're in a pandemic. We're not doing
It's
it's
exactly, but it is definitely growing, and one of the consequences has been what the stress that has been shown to specific school board members. So across the country, school board members are resigning.
oh my.
And these are all people who just volunteer, community members, many of them are former teachers like us who ran for school board, parents. I mean, the two groups of people who are most likely to run for school board are teachers and parents. Those are the interested parties, right? And they are being harassed, incredibly harassed by these folks who have their beliefs, particularly around the vaccines and around masking. And it's very different from community to community, but it's a big issue, and people have resigned. There's a whole list of people who have been resigning. Or the opposite of that is they're being recalled.
Yeah.
San Francisco, right? San Francisco has gotten the votes to be able to put a recall election up for their board.
Yeah. And
Right.
those same people are behind the recall for Newsom as well. Those are all the same people. It's all the same crowd. Oh my gosh.
So there's all of that. So that's sort of the political framework that we're working under right now this week. The other thing that's been interesting is as children are going back to school and families are dealing with the issues around school, there has been, and they're dealing with the new Delta variant and the fact that more and more people are, even some vaccinated people are at risk of getting a breakthrough infection, or if you're not vaccinated, you're at very high risk of getting COVID. So the consequence of that throughout the country is folks wanting to go back to distance learning. Right. So locally in Mount Diablo, there have been 500 people asking to go into distance learning. In West Contra Costa, there were over 300. They had originally thought they were going to have 75 slots. Now they have over 300, and there's like another 100 people who are families that are interested in switching in. And it's not just here. In New York, there's a student-led effort to get the New York, because everybody had put all this energy into be sure we open up, we're going to open up we're fully open up, right? And that's not a fit for everybody in this world, right? You can't just 100% go back to where we came from, because that's not the world we're in.
Yeah.
And so there are these students who are putting this whole phone blast out, and they're not calling it distance learning, but it is. They're saying a phone blast for remote option, which is distance learning.
Distance learning. Yeah.
Right. So that they don't have to go in and expose themselves or expose their families.
And
that is
to the students, this is their education, and they want to be safe, but they want their education. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's something that districts have to look at and just say, look, the fact that you reopened, it's fine, it's wonderful, it's important for everybody, but you've got to have that option. And in California, they eliminated the distance learning option. You could open a virtual school. West Contra Costa did. There are some other districts that did, but the rest of it is that what you would do is go into independent study, which is not a virtual school.
No.
It's this whole other, and that's the thing that more and more people had to understand. And also then how independent study is being run now is under a new piece of legislation, and they're still trying to work all of that out so that there's a way for families to be able to make the decision.
Yeah.
And that's not even covering what happens when families are going to quarantine, and how many children and more children are in quarantine throughout the country. And as California just starts to open, that's happening here. So then the question is, how did those children continue? You could be in quarantine and you're not, you're not sick. Your teacher might be sick. If somebody's sick, then they don't participate because they're not well. Otherwise, they should be able to participate, but it has to be remote.
Yeah.
So that process is still being worked out. And it's a giant struggle, right? It's being worked out literally from classroom to classroom, as far as I can see.
Yeah. It's very confusing because we are all on the road after the vaccines that, okay, we're slowly now we got to turn around and go back again. And it's so confusing. And of course, the kids are the ones who suffer the most from this, the students. And so,
yeah, I mean, it is and so folks have to, it's not like these are easy answers. They're not easy answers, but what people have to do is bring their open hearts and minds together to work to come up with the answers, right? And
more
that's
level-headed, compassionate, empathetic, and collaborative. So
exactly. And the places that are doing that are finding success. And the folks that aren't, right? Then you're back at a table, you're back into a war. And that is what you don't want. That's what you don't want. I mean, the other big war is the whole critical race theory issue, which is just blowing up. And in Southern California, there's a website where you can turn in your teacher if they're indoctrinating you.
oh my God.
In North Carolina, the lieutenant governor set up a website for anybody in North Carolina to turn in a teacher who's indoctrinating it. He put it on his webpage statewide.
Oh my God.
So if you want to know, have a chilling effect, right? People are going to lose their careers.
Yeah, they're going to lose their jobs, and
just because they're teaching the truth.
Yeah, that is very bizarre. That is very bizarre.
There's a board in Southern California, in East County, in East San Diego County, that has banned critical race theory. So that's a California board. So Southern California is there with everybody else. California is a big place, right?
Yeah.
Northern California is much more. It has a much different perspective, and is much more accepting of ethnic studies. And that's the other thing. They all have confused ethnic studies with critical race theories. And what this is doing is having different states banning ethnic studies.
Yeah. And it's very racist what they're doing. It's really pointing at racism. You don't want anybody to be aware of it, to know it, to stop it, to try to change it. And so that right there is racist in itself. So that's what's behind this.
Well, it's total. There is now something besides critical race theory. There's something called tribal crit, and that is how you teach Native American history.
Oh no! Oh my gosh, that's too much.
And there's a whole, there's a story there, and you need to tell your story, and that's being questioned. So all of that is still happening while the pandemic is happening, while everything else is happening. Okay. And and we just all have to know that is where we are. They're fighting, the mask fight is all over. The Biden administration is now saying it's a civil rights issue, that the states that are banning a mask mandate they're going to go after them under the civil rights laws. So there's going to be a lot of action in federal courts around this. But sure. That takes a long time by the time that actually gets worked out.
Yeah.
But that's happening too. And just locally, the district is reopened tonight. They're going to have their open house night, and teachers are going to be sharing out how their classrooms are operating this year. Mm-hmm. And that's a really important thing, I think, across America, is families are going back and hearing from their teachers. And they've changed a lot about how they're doing their board meetings. There are a lot of different philosophies around board meetings. And the new philosophy in West Contra Costa is to get things done quickly and get to the point and ask as few questions as possible.
Yeah,
Which is a difficult thing right now when everybody has so many questions.
that's right. That's right. We do have so many questions. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about the
Yes, you tell us what's happening at the county.
level. I think last week I mentioned about the Department of Juvenile Justice for California has closed those, or is in the process of closing them, because what they want to do is phase it out. So it's not like, we shut the doors and we ship those kids somewhere else. They're going to phase out those kids. Eventually those kids will become of age, and then they go to whatever their next level is, and hopefully getting out of the system. And they'll be permanently closed by 2023 is kind of what they've projected. And those students, or as those come up where they normally would be sent there, they're going to be sent to the counties now. So those students will now be the responsibility of the counties where those students resided, which is.
And they were with the Department of Justice before. Basically what we're talking about is closing juvenile hall, right?
Yeah. The prisons, California juvenile prisons that they use.
Right.
Yeah. But each county still has their juvenile hall and their community schools, both. And so that's where these students will go into, they'll still be incarcerated, but they'll be at the juvenile detention center. So as cases arise, then they will come to the county rather than going to the California prison system. So, and one interesting thing in that presentation last time was to discover that we have room at this county because our numbers of juveniles in our juvenile hall have gone down, which is an interesting development. And I think it's worth having a closer look at that, like what was the trend and what may have caused that to happen. And hopefully, we have different practices when it comes to the police practices. So hopefully, that's what it was about, but I think that's going to be really interesting. So more and more, this is developing. They're going to expand the services provided. And again, the County Board of Education, we only offer the education part. So there's still, all the other things that these students juveniles are qualified to receive different kinds of services, which, whether it's counseling or other things. So there's more than just what we are providing. So this is an ongoing thing, and I think I'll keep everybody posted about that as well. And what it brings to mind is that there have been social justice workers working to close those prisons for so many years. I just remember going way back, people talking about it, how bad, and about the abuses. As I look in some of the research, there have been reported abuses in those prisons for a long time. So thankfully they've won that part. So now we need to focus on getting good quality services to them at the county office. So that's one thing. And then the next is this other ongoing issue is about district boundaries. We had 3 districts who are changing a boundary because of a housing development.
This is school districts, so just people know, this isn't a school boundary. These are school district boundaries.
District boundaries. And these, I can say, Antioch, Brentwood, and what's the other?
Oakley, right? Is it
Liberty.
Oakley? Liberty.
So, because one's a high school, one's elementary, and
right.
Antioch. Yeah. And they've come together and they agreed to divide up this housing development, and it's kind of like an S form. And so there's a lot of discussion, and we're just trying to figure this out. But I can we are in charge of doing the inter-district transfers, and parents come and they are either in a panic, they're desperate, they need help, they want to move their child from one school to another, or I mean, one district to another for their own personal reasons,
Right.
whether it's transportation or childcare, or, they want their child to be safe and they want them to get good care, because all parents work. I mean, really, everybody's working and trying to manage all of this stuff that's going on. So this it's an ongoing issue. We at the board have not yet approved what has been proposed by these districts. So we'll be discussing that more tonight at our board meeting, which starts at 5 o'clock. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But it is an issue, and our hearts go out to those parents. They're so frustrated and they're just relying on us to help them with this added stress that of trying to get their child in the right environment for school. So many reasons, many different reasons, but it's not done lightly. It's a lot of work to do this for the parent. They got to put in all these documents and they got to provide the reasons, and this is a lot of work. So our hearts go out to those parents, and we're seeing it as a bigger picture. We, the board, we're seeing it as a bigger picture, and we're going to do more study about it and maybe help you, these inter-district transfers to be more easily done, and looking at those school district boundaries. It's always interesting.
Yeah, how they get set. I mean, that becomes the thing. At what point is the boundary? I mean, the boundary has to be somewhere, but oftentimes those boundaries were set before the developments were ever built, and they don't, the parcel doesn't track the boundaries of the school districts, and
Yeah,
so there's all that.
one of the presenters, he's kind of a consultant, said, and back in 2007, they were drawing this development without paying any attention to school boundaries. And I thought, okay, stop right there. Did I just hear you say housing developer does not even consider school boundaries, school district boundaries? That was incredible. So that has to stop. You're building houses for families, you're creating neighborhoods. I'm sure that's what you want to do. I know you want to make money, but you're building communities for families.
Right. And you're assuming, I mean, I think what happens is they're assuming that, of course, this is all one, they're just assuming that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But of course it is. I mean,
it's a big problem.
I'm sure lots of the time it's not. I mean, I'm sure most of the time they do a development somewhere and it is totally within one district, and that's the fact.
And then that's fine.
But you got to check.
There
should be some system where they would need to check.
All right, well, that's what we're doing. What's next here?
I suppose I got to do. As far as taking action, there's two things I was going to talk about. One of them is I wanted to give a shout out to Sacramento regarding Afghanistan. They have the largest Afghan population in the United States in Sacramento County and the environment around it. They have 9,700 Afghan population in Sacramento County and another 2,000 in the two counties around it. So they're trying to get students who were in Afghanistan, I think, who maybe had been in the Sacramento schools and maybe traveled back during COVID to visit family, who haven't gotten out of Afghanistan yet.
Okay.
Right. So that's an issue that comes right home into the education. This is where education and our foreign wars are coming together this week as the Afghan war is ending. So that is one thing that's happening. And then when we were thinking about action alerts, as far as things that we can do to take some action, is if you do have questions for your for the district, for your district, you can send them. I mean, you do want to make sure you get them answered, right? And we can do that by contacting all our board members, no matter what district you're in.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Because there's a lot of questions people need answers to. And the thing is that a lot of times board members don't get a lot of information from the constituents. Constituents are busy. They're trying to, and so if a board members offers space, maybe on social media or brings, I think that's the perfect place for them to reach out to their constituents.
Exactly.
They have to use social media. I mean, nowadays, and they can't come in board meetings in person, not yet, as far as I know. And
well, even if you can, that they're limited, right? So that
yes.
there've been board meetings held in the last few weeks in California and across the country, but you can see people are trying to have social distancing. Who knows whether or not they're going to, pull back and put them all back online for a while if we're worried about the numbers going up. And either way, no question, all questions are important. And if you have a question, it's important to ask and to get it out there. And the thing is, don't assume that they're going to think of this question, because they're not necessarily.
Right. And,
right?
Board members were elected by constituents. So they have an obligation to listen to those constituents. Right. And in our district, we got an area. So you've got your area representative. Please contact.
But you can write to all of them. You've got your representative, yes. But all of them are going to vote, and that's true in all of these districts that are split up in terms of how you get elected. So pay attention to that. Be willing to understand that if you don't, you're never going to get the answer if you don't ask. And then if you don't get it, then you can elevate it. But don't be afraid to start with board members. It really is a smart thing to do. And finally, I want to do our shout out. Yes. So one of the big events this week was Hurricane Ida. And one of the teachers that we had here at Between Two Teachers is a New Orleans teacher, Adam Cronenberg, my son. And he had just started at a new school in New Orleans, where he lives and where the school is, called Homer Plessy Community School. And Homer Plessy Community School and all schools in New Orleans right now are indefinitely closed, because right this minute there is no electricity in the city of New Orleans.
No water, right?
And no water, no electricity. So you have to have a generator. And everybody, and it's not a Katrina level crisis, thank God. People survived, the levees held, but now it's the aftermath, and it's going to take time. We don't know how much time. That's why the posting that Homer Plessy School did, they did it on Twitter. It's how they're communicating, is on Twitter. Somebody, because you can't email. I mean, it's a real set of issues here. But what they said was, we are indefinitely closed, and we'll let you know when school can open again, but take care of yourself and take care of your families. Yeah. So my shout out is to everybody in New Orleans, all of the families, all of the educators, and all of those folks who are really struggling right now. It's also like 100 degrees there and 100 degrees humidity. So that's the other thing. People are going to suffer. And the thing they're worried about is people dying of heat stroke.
Yeah. There's no way to.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. So a shout out to everybody there. A shout out to Adam, who is there and is working through it and letting us know what happens next. And the one thing is, his students will have even more stories to tell. On top of COVID, now they have this.
Yeah. And Adam is one very dedicated teacher. I mean, he goes above and beyond. He's an extraordinary teacher.
He really is looking for ways to make the best out of this. And so at the end of this, we'll bring him back in to tell stories and how he's worked with his students when they get back.
Yeah, and I'm sure
You know?
there's, some others, those are our hope. Our hope are young teachers, our young people who are more compassionate, empathetic, and know how to communicate and collaborate, because that's what's going to help. That's what's going to save us.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
So until next week, we'll see you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.